Kim Tae-ho walked into the biggest room he had ever seen. The walls stretched so high that he could not see the top. Lights floated in the air without any support. Around him sat creatures from 47 different worlds. Some had scales, others had fur. Some were tall like trees, others were small like children. All of them were much older than humanity and the stars. The human ambassador felt small. His black suit looked plain next to the bright colors and strange shapes of the other delegates. But he carried something important in his briefcase, something that could save millions of lives if these creatures would listen. "The Council recognizes the human delegation," said a voice that came from everywhere at once. Kim Tae-ho had never gotten used to that. The Galactic Council did not use speakers. They used some kind of mind technology that put words directly into everyone's head. Kim Tae-ho stood up. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to walk to the center of the room. A bright light came down from above and surrounded him. Now everyone could see him clearly. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. His voice sounded tiny in the huge space. "I bring urgent news from the Void Sector. Something terrible is happening there. Something that threatens all life in our galaxy." A sound like laughter came from the Zenthari section. The Zenthari looked like giant lizards that walked on two legs. They wore armor made of metal that changed colors. Their leader, Commander Zextal, leaned forward in his floating chair. "The humans speak of threats again," Zextal said. His voice was deep and rough. "Always they see danger where there is none. Always they fear what they do not understand." Kim Tae-ho felt his face get hot, but he stayed calm. "Commander Zextal, with respect, we have proof. 3 of our research stations have gone silent. Our deep space explorers have seen things that should not exist." He opened his briefcase and took out a small device. With the push of a button, pictures appeared in the air above his head. The first picture showed a human space station. It was small but well built. The second picture showed the same location 3 days later. Nothing was there except empty space. "Station Alpha 7 had 50 researchers," Kim Tae-ho said. "They were studying dark matter formations in the Void Sector. Their last message was—" He stopped and played an audio recording. The voice that came from the device was full of fear. "Something is coming. Something big. The space around us is bending. The stars are going out one by one. If anyone receives this message, stay away from the Void Sector. Do not come here. Do not—" The recording ended with a scream that made several council members move uncomfortably in their seats. Park Min-soo stood up from the human section. He was shorter than Kim Tae-ho, but wore the blue uniform of a galactic scientist. "Honored Council, I am Park Min-soo, xenobiologist for the Human Fleet. Our sensors detected energy readings that break every law of physics we know. The gravitational disturbances in that region are impossible according to current science." He gestured and more pictures appeared. These showed graphs and numbers that most of the council could not understand, but some could, and those began to whisper among themselves. "The energy signature is off our charts," Park Min-soo continued. "Whatever caused this can bend space and time. It can make matter disappear without a trace, and it is moving." A new voice spoke up. This one was high and musical. It belonged to Veltar Prime, leader of the Veltar Confederation. The Veltar looked like tall, thin humans, but with blue skin and 4 arms. They thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy. The humans bring us fairy tales, Veltar Prime said. Her 4 arms moved in patterns that meant disagreement in Veltar culture. They speak of impossible things because their science is still young. They have been in space for only 200 years. We have been among the stars for 20,000 years. This is not about age, Kim Tae-ho said, his voice getting stronger. This is about survival. Our ship, the Soul's Edge, recorded these images just 5 days ago. The air above him filled with a new picture. It showed something that made the entire council go quiet. In the black of space, there was a shape that looked like it was made of stars. But the stars were wrong. They pulsed like a heartbeat. They moved like they were alive. That structure is 3 light years across, Park Min-soo said. It appeared overnight. Our best computers cannot figure out what it is made of. But every time we get close to study it, our ships lose contact with us. Doctor, Lee Soo-jin stood up next. She was older than the other humans, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She was the head of human strategic analysis, and her job was to think about the worst things that could happen. Council members, she said in a clear voice, we are not here to argue about human capabilities. We are here because something is killing entire star systems. We have detected the same energy signature near 12 different solar systems in the past month. 3 of those systems are now completely empty. No planets, no suns, nothing but void. The council chamber became very quiet. Even the Zenthari stopped their laughing. You claim entire star systems have vanished? Asked a voice from the Krex delegation. The Krex were small creatures that looked like walking mushrooms, but they were excellent engineers. Not vanished, Lee Soo-jin corrected. Consumed. Our long-range sensors show that something is eating matter itself, converting it into energy, and that energy is being used to make the structure in the void sector larger. Kim Tae-ho looked around the room. He could see that some of the council members were starting to believe them, but others, especially the Zenthari and Veltar, still looked dismissive. We request that the Council declare the Void Sector a restricted zone, Kim Tae-ho said. No ships from any species should enter that region until we understand what we are dealing with. We also request permission to establish a joint research task force to study this threat. Commander Zextal stood up. His armor gleamed in the council lights. The humans want us to fear empty space because they saw some energy readings they cannot explain. This is typical human behavior. They are a young species, and young species see monsters in every shadow. The Zenthari Empire has explored regions of space that humans cannot imagine, Zextal continued. Our ships have technology that makes human vessels look like toys. If there was a real threat in the void sector, we would have found it long ago. Veltar Prime nodded her four-armed agreement. The Veltar Confederation agrees with the Zenthari. The humans are letting their imagination create fears that do not exist. Their evidence is incomplete, and their conclusions are wrong. Kim Tae-ho felt frustration building in his chest. With respect, have either of your species actually sent ships to investigate the void sector recently? We do not waste time investigating human ghost stories, Zextal replied. Dr. Lee Soo-jin stepped forward. Then you are making decisions about a threat you have not examined. We are asking you to look at our evidence. Send your own ships to verify our claims, but do it carefully. Do it safely. The council began to debate. Voices rose and fell in dozens of different languages. Some species supported the humans. Others dismissed them completely. The argument went on for hours. Finally, the council speaker, an ancient being whose species no one remembered, called for order. The council has heard the human warnings, the speaker announced. We have examined their evidence. The decision is made. Kim Tae-ho held his breath. The void sector is hereby declared off-limits to human vessels only. The humans have shown themselves to be reckless and prone to panic. Their presence in that region could destabilize whatever natural phenomena they have encountered. The restriction applies only to human ships, Veltar Prime added with satisfaction. Other species may continue to explore and research as they see fit. Kim Tae-ho could not believe what he was hearing. You are restricting us, but not yourselves? You are banning the only species that has actually studied this threat? The decision is final, the speaker said. As the council session ended, Kim Tae-ho gathered his papers and recordings. His team looked defeated, but he saw something else in Dr. Lee Soo-jin's eyes. She was already planning something. Outside the council chamber, the three humans walked slowly toward their ship. They will learn, Park Min-soo said quietly. When their own ships start disappearing, they will understand. By then it might be too late, Kim Tae-ho replied. Dr. Lee Soo-jin said nothing, but she was thinking about contingency plans. She was thinking about what humans would have to do if the galaxy would not listen to reason. She was thinking about survival. Admiral Cho Dong-min stood in the command center of Earth's United Defense Command. The room was built deep underground in Seoul, protected by layers of metal and rock. Screens covered every wall, showing the positions of human ships throughout known space. Red lights blinked where danger had been detected. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity's warning. 6 months of watching and waiting. Now the worst fears were becoming real. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Yoon Seok-jin from his position at the communications desk. We are receiving reports from our border stations. The Zenthari Empire has launched a major fleet into the void sector. Cho Dong-min walked over to the main display screen. It showed a map of local space with different colors for different species. The Zenthari territory was marked in red. A cluster of red dots was moving toward the area marked in black, the void sector. How many ships? The Admiral asked. Intelligence says 57 vessels, including their newest dreadnoughts, replied Yoon Seok-jin. The Zenthari are calling it Operation Glorious Discovery. They want to prove that humans are cowards who fear empty space. The Admiral felt a cold weight in his stomach. 57 ships meant over 30,000 Zenthari lives. Any word? From the Veltar? Yes, sir, said another officer. The Veltar Confederation has sent their research fleet toward the same region, 12 science vessels with their best exploration technology. Cho Dong-min closed his eyes for a moment. The stubborn pride of the older races was about to cost them everything. What about our own assets in the area? Captain Han Ji-woo spoke up from her station near the back of the room. She was young for a ship captain, but she had proven herself during the pirate conflicts in the outer colonies. Sir, the Soul's Edge is positioned 3 light-years from the Void Sector boundary. We are maintaining stealth protocols and monitoring all transmissions. Good. What have you observed so far? Han Ji-woo looked at her reports. The structure that Dr. Park Min-soo detected has grown larger. Our sensors show it is now 5 light-years across. The energy readings are stronger than before. And Admiral... She paused. Speak freely, Captain. We have detected movement. The structure is not staying in one place. It appears to be moving toward inhabited systems. A silence fell over the command center. Everyone understood what that meant. The thing in the void sector was not just growing, it was hunting. How long before it reaches the nearest populated system? Asked the Admiral. At current speed, approximately 4 months? Han Ji-woo replied. Cho Dong-min turned to face the entire room. People, we are looking at a crisis that could destroy galactic civilization. The Council has forbidden us from entering the Void Sector, but they have not forbidden us from defending ourselves. I want every border station on high alert. I want every ship captain to know that they may need to act without waiting for Council approval. Meanwhile, in a secret laboratory beneath the city of Busan, Dr. Kang Hye-rin was making a discovery that would change everything. She worked alone in a room filled with ancient artifacts that human explorers had found in dead star systems. These were pieces of technology and writing from civilizations that had died out millions of years ago. For weeks, she had been trying to translate symbols found on a metal tablet recovered from the first human expedition to the Void Sector. The symbols looked familiar, but she could not place where she had seen them before. Then she realized the truth. The symbols were not from one dead civilization. They were from 12 different extinct species. The same warning, written in 12 different ancient languages. Sleep eternal do the first ones, she read aloud, translating slowly. Hunger endless drives their purpose. When the young races grow too bold, when their noise fills the void, the sleepers wake. They come to feed. They come to grow. Beware the stars that pulse with life, for they are not stars at all. Dr. Kang Hye-rin felt her blood turn cold. She reached for her communication device and sent an urgent message to Admiral Cho Dong-min back. In the command center, alarms began ringing. The main screen lit up with incoming data from the Soul's Edge. Admiral, Han Ji-woo's voice came through the speakers with barely controlled panic. The Zenthari fleet has reached the Void Sector. They are beginning their approach to the structure. Put it on the main screen, ordered Cho Dong-min. The room filled with an image transmitted from the Soul's Edge. In the distance, they could see the Zenthari dreadnoughts. The ships looked like flying pyramids made of dark metal. Each one was 3 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy planets. "The Zenthari are broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Communications Officer Choi Yun-hai. "They are claiming victory over human cowardice. They say they will prove that the void sector holds nothing but natural phenomena." As they watched, the Zenthari ships approached the massive structure. Up close, it looked even more wrong than before. It was made of thousands of points of light that pulsed in rhythm. The lights were arranged in patterns that hurt to look at, as if they were designed by minds that thought in impossible ways. "Zenthari Fleet Leader is transmitting," Choi Eun-hye announced. "Commander Zextal is speaking." The voice that came through the speakers was full of arrogance. "To all species listening, the mighty Zenthari Empire has reached the source of human fears. We see before us a simple energy phenomenon. There is no threat here. The humans have wasted the Council's time with their primitive panic." Then, something changed on the screen. The pulsing lights of the structure began to move faster. The pattern shifted, becoming more complex. "Admiral," called out Science Officer Bae Young-ho from his monitoring station, "I am detecting massive energy spikes. Something is happening to the structure." The image from Soul's Edge showed tendrils of light reaching out from the main structure. They moved like living things, stretching across space toward the Zenthari fleet. "Zenthari ships are taking evasive action," reported Han Ji-woo. "But the energy tendrils are moving faster than their ships can fly." What happened next would be remembered as the moment everything changed. The tendrils of light touched the hull of the lead Zenthari dreadnought. Instead of destroying the ship, the light began to spread across its surface like infection. The metal hull started to change, becoming something that was part machine and part living tissue. "The Zenthari are screaming," Choi Yun-hai said with horror in her voice. "Their transmissions, they are not making sense anymore." The sound that came through the speakers was no longer the proud voice of Commander Zextal. It was something else, something that spoke with many voices at once, using words in languages that did not exist. "We are becoming one," the voice said. "Purpose, clear, growth, necessary, hunger, endless." One by one, the Zenthari ships were touched by the light. One by one, they transformed into something alien and wrong. Their hulls grew organic shapes. Tendrils stretched between the ships, connecting them into a single massive organism. Soul's Edge reports the entire Zenthari fleet has been compromised, Han Ji-woo said quietly. "But Admiral, the ships are not destroyed. They are still moving. They are turning toward inhabited space." Dr. Kang Hye-rin burst into the command center at that moment, carrying her translated tablet. "Admiral, I know what we are dealing with. These things are called the First Ones. They are the oldest form of life in the galaxy. They sleep between the stars until younger civilizations make enough noise to wake them up." "How do we stop them?" asked Cho Dong-min. "According to these warnings, no one ever has," she replied. "Every civilization that encountered them was consumed, but the warnings say something else. They say the first ones do not understand chaos. They think in patterns. They expect order. Species that are unpredictable have a chance. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms rang again. "Sir," called out another officer, "the Veltar research fleet has just entered the Void sector. They are ignoring all warnings to retreat." On the screen, they watched 12 Veltar science vessels approach the growing mass of converted Zenthari. Ships. The Veltar ships looked like silver needles, elegant and precise. "The Veltar are transmitting," Choi Yun-hae reported. "They say they will succeed where the Zenthari failed through superior intellect and better technology." But intellect and technology meant nothing to the first ones. The converted Zenthari ships moved to meet the Veltar fleet. When they touched, the infection spread instantly. The silver needles became part of the growing organism. "Admiral," Han Ji-woo said from the Soul's Edge, "the converted fleet is now 43 ships strong, and they are moving. They are heading for the nearest inhabited system." "Which system?" asked Cho Dong-min, though he already feared the answer. "The Krex colony worlds. Population, 4 billion beings." The Admiral looked around the command center. Every face showed the same expression of horror and determination. "Send a message to all human ships," he ordered. "Recall all vessels to defensive positions around human colonies. Send warnings to every species that will listen, and get me a direct line to Earth's government." "Sir," asked Yun Seok-jin, "what if the Galactic Council orders us to stand down?" Admiral Cho Dong-min was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke words that would echo through human history. Communications analyst Lim Jae-sung sat in the dark monitoring room, surrounded by screens that showed signals from across the galaxy. His job was to listen to the voices of space, radio transmissions, emergency broadcasts, and distress calls from ships in trouble. Tonight, those voices were screaming. The first broken message had come in 3 hours ago. Static filled most of it, but Lim Jae-sung could make out a few words. "Fleet compromised. Something in the ships. Help us. They are not dead." He played the recording again, trying to clean up the signal. Each time he heard it, the Yi message became more disturbing. The voice belonged to a Zenthari communications officer, but it sounded wrong. It spoke too slowly, as if the speaker was learning how to use their own voice. "Sir," he called to his supervisor, "I think you need to hear this." Lieutenant Park High-Rim came over to his station. She was an expert at reading between the lines of military communications. "What do you have?" "Fragments from the Zenthari fleet. In the Void sector. But, sir, these messages are coming from ships that should be dead. And the voices..." He played the cleaned-up recording. The voice that came through the speakers made both humans step back. It was definitely Zenthari, but it spoke with the rhythm of something else, something that had learned to copy speech but did not understand what the words meant. "We are grateful for this form. This purpose is acceptable. We grow. We learn. We become more." "That is not how Zenthari speak," Park High-Rim said quietly. "Send this to Admiral Cho immediately. And Lim, keep monitoring. I want to know everything that comes out of that sector." Captain Han Ji-woo watched the sensor readings from her position on the Soul's Edge. The stealth ship was hidden among asteroids, far enough from the action to stay safe but close enough to observe everything. What she saw through her telescopes made her wish she had stayed home. The Zenthari dreadnoughts floated in space like dead whales. But they were not dead. Their hulls pulsed with organic growth. Tendrils stretched between the ships, connecting them into one massive creature. Where once there had been separate vessels, now there was something that looked like a living spiderweb made of metal and flesh. "Science Officer Bae Young-ho," she called to her crew member. "Are you getting readings on those ships?" Bae Young-ho looked up from his instruments with confusion on his face. "Captain, the ships are still broadcasting, but they are broadcasting on frequencies that should not exist. And the signals, they are not random. They form patterns." "What kind of patterns?" "I think they are trying to communicate with something. Maybe with each other, or maybe with something else entirely." He paused and checked his readings again. "Captain, I am also detecting that the signals contain information that affects the brain. Looking at the patterns directly could be dangerous." Han Ji-woo felt a chill run down her spine. "Dangerous how?" "The patterns seem designed to rewrite neural pathways. They could change how a person thinks." Before she could respond, her communications, Officer Choi Yun-hai called out urgently. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the converted fleet. They are trying to contact us directly." "Do not respond," Han Ji-woo ordered immediately. "And do not listen to their signal directly. Filter it through the computer first." The main screen lit up with text as the computer translated the incoming signal. The words that appeared made everyone on the bridge feel sick. Small hidden ones. "We know you watch. We welcome you to join us. Your chaotic thoughts will bring new perspective to our unity. We can make you perfect. We can end your loneliness." "Cut the transmission," Han Ji-woo ordered, "and get us out of here. Now." As the Soul's Edge moved away from the infected area, they received new orders from Earth Command. They were to monitor the converted fleet from a safe distance and report on their movements. What they discovered over the next few days was terrifying. The converted ships were not staying in the void sector. They were moving toward inhabited star systems, and they were moving fast. Field Commander Oh Sung-woo stood in the command center of Border Station Gamma, watching the long-range sensors with growing alarm. The station was positioned at the edge of human space, designed to watch for pirates and hostile aliens. Now it was watching for something much worse. "Commander," called out his sensor operator, "we have movement in Sector 7. The converted fleet has changed course." Oh Sung-woo looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed the position of the alien ships. They were no longer heading for the Krex colonies. They had turned toward a different target. "Where are they going now?" he asked. "The Veltar Research Colony on Kepler 442b. Population 2 million. Oh!" Seung-woo grabbed his communicator. "Get me Admiral Cho immediately." While he waited for the connection, he watched the red dots move across his screen. The converted fleet was moving faster than any normal ships could travel. Whatever they had become, they were not limited by the same physics that governed regular spacecraft. "Admiral Cho here," came the voice through the communicator. "Sir, the infected fleet has changed course. They are heading for a Veltar colony world. Estimated arrival in 6 hours." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Admiral Cho spoke. "Commander, I want you to send a warning to that colony. Tell them to evacuate immediately." "Sir, what if they do not believe us? What if they think this is some kind of human trick? Then 2 million Veltar are going to die, and maybe their deaths will finally make the Galactic Council listen." Dr. Kang Hee-rin worked frantically in her laboratory, trying to decode more of the ancient warnings. The tablets from extinct civilizations were covered in symbols that told the same story over and over again. Advanced species would explore. Too far, make too much noise in space, and wake up the first ones. But there was something else in the warnings. Something that might be important. "The sleepers harvest the ordered mind," she read from one tablet. "But the chaotic thought confuses their purpose. Those who think in spirals rather than lines may find escape in madness." She reached for another tablet, this one from a species called the Nexhi, who had died out 5 million years ago. "We tried to fight with logic and planning," the translation read. "Our greatest minds worked together to find a solution, but unity of thought made us easy to consume. Only the broken ones, the ones who could not think straight, survived long enough to leave this warning." Dr. Kang Hee-rin realized what the ancient civilizations were trying to tell her. The first ones could easily consume minds that thought in predictable ways. But humans thought differently than most species. Humans were emotional, chaotic, and unpredictable. Maybe that chaos was not a weakness. Maybe it was their greatest strength. She sent her findings to Admiral Cho just as the first reports came in from the Veltar colony. The attack on Kepler 442b was unlike anything anyone had seen before. The converted ships did not fire weapons or drop bombs. Instead, they landed on the planet's surface and began to change it. Captain Ryu Hyun-soo commanded the defense frigate Busan's Shield, and he watched the attack through long-range sensors from the edge of the system. What he saw would give him nightmares for the rest of his life. "The ships are not destroying the cities," he reported to Earth Command. "They are transforming them. The buildings are becoming organic. The streets are turning into nerve pathways. The entire planet is becoming one massive organism." On his screen, he could see the Veltar cities change from silver and glass structures into pulsing masses of biomechanical tissue. The transformation spread from each landing site like an infection, converting everything it touched. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we are receiving transmissions from the planet's surface." "Put it through," Ryu Hyun-soo ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was unmistakably Veltar, but it spoke with the same wrong rhythm they had heard from the converted Zenthari. "We understand now the beauty of unity. Individual thought was inefficient. We are grateful for this improvement." "Cut the transmission," the captain ordered quickly, but the damage was done. 2 of his crew members were staring at the speakers with blank expressions. "Medical team to the bridge," he called, "and seal all communications. Do not listen to anything coming from that planet." The transformation of Kepler 442b took only 6 hours. By the time it was complete, the planet looked like a massive brain made of cities and landscapes. It pulsed with energy that could be detected from light years away, and then it began to move. The entire planet broke orbit and started traveling through space like a ship. Dr. Song Mi Kyung led the emergency research team at Earth's main science facility. Her job was to figure out how to fight something that turned entire worlds into weapons. She worked with samples of the strange signals that the converted beings broadcast, trying to understand how they affected the mind. The signals work by imposing order on chaotic brain patterns, she explained to Admiral Cho during their emergency meeting. They find the random connections in neural networks and force them into specific patterns. But humans have more random connections than most species. What does that mean for us? Asked the Admiral. It means we are naturally resistant to their conversion process, not immune, but resistant. Our brains are messy and chaotic compared to species like the Xanthari and Veltar. We think with emotions and instincts, not just logic. General Park Ki-tae stood before the largest war map in human history. The holographic display filled an entire room beneath the mountains of South Korea, showing every known star system in the local galaxy. Red zones marked areas where the infection had spread. The red was growing bigger every hour. "General," called out Intelligence Officer Nam Soo-young from her station, "we have confirmed reports from 17 star systems. The pattern is always the same. Ships arrive, land on inhabited worlds, and begin the conversion process. Entire populations are being absorbed into this collective consciousness." Park Ki-tae studied the map with tired eyes. He had not slept in 3 days. "How many beings have been lost?" Conservative estimate, 40 billion and counting. The number hit him like a physical blow. 40 billion lives turned into something alien and wrong. And the galactic powers that could have prevented this disaster were still arguing about jurisdiction and procedure. "What about the Council's response?" he asked. Nam Soo-young looked at her reports with disgust. "The remaining Council members are in emergency session, but they spend more time blaming each other than planning a defense. The Xanthari claim this would never have happened if humans had not disturbed the void sector. The Veltar insist that their science can find a solution if given enough time. Meanwhile, their colonies are being converted one by one. Captain Ryu Hyun-soo's ship, Busan's Shield, floated in the empty space where the Veltar colony of Kepler 442b used to orbit its sun. The planet itself was gone, turned into a massive biomechanical entity that had joined the growing fleet of converted worlds. "Captain," reported his sensor operator, "long-range scanners are detecting multiple converted planets moving through this sector. They appear to be coordinating their movements." Ryu Hyun-soo looked at the display. 7 different planets, each one transformed into a living organism, were moving in formation through space. They moved like a pack of predators hunting for new prey. "Where are they heading?" he asked. "Trajectory analysis suggests the Krek's home system. Population, 12 billion. Ryu Hyun-soo felt sick. The Kreks were peaceful engineers who had never harmed anyone. Their technology was used throughout the galaxy to build hospitals and schools. Now they were about to become food for an alien consciousness that turned everything it touched into extensions of itself. "Send a warning to the Kreks. Government," he ordered. "Tell them to evacuate their worlds immediately." "Sir," his communications officer replied. The Krex representatives are saying this is a human deception designed to cause panic. They refuse to believe that entire planets can be converted into living ships. Meanwhile, Dr. Song Mi-kyung made a breakthrough in her laboratory on Earth. She had been studying the brain patterns of humans who had been exposed to the conversion signals but remained unconverted. What she found changed everything. "Admiral Cho," she called through the communicator, "you need to see this immediately." When the Admiral arrived at her lab, Dr. Song Mi-kyung showed him brain scans from test subjects. "Look at this," she said, pointing to colorful patterns on her screen. "This is the brain of a Xanthari exposed to conversion signals. See how the neural pathways reorganize into geometric patterns. The signals force the brain to think in ordered, logical sequences." She switched to another scan. "This is a Veltar brain under the same conditions. Same result. Perfect geometric order." Then she showed him a third scan. "This is a human brain exposed to the same signals." Admiral Cho stared at the screen. The human brain scan looked like a storm. Neural pathways fired in chaotic bursts, creating patterns that changed constantly. "The conversion signals cannot establish control," Dr. Song Mi-kyung explained. "Human brains resist because we think with emotion as much as logic. Our neural networks are too chaotic for the first ones to control easily." "How can we use this?" the Admiral asked. "I have an idea, but it is dangerous. If we can amplify human thought patterns and broadcast them, we might be able to disrupt the collective consciousness that controls the converted beings." Colonel Kim Yong-sik was chosen to lead the first experimental mission. His ship, the Soul's Revenge, was equipped with prototype Chaos broadcasters designed by Dr. Song Mi-kyung's team. The devices would transmit the electrical patterns of human brain activity on frequencies that the first ones used for communication. "Remember," Dr. Song Mi-kyung told him before departure, "we are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to confuse them. Human thoughts are random and emotional. That randomness should disrupt their ability to maintain collective control." Kim Yong-sik and his crew of volunteers approached a converted Xanthari fleet that was moving toward the Krex home system. The 10 ships had once been proud dreadnoughts. Now they looked like flying organs connected by organic cables. "Activate the Chaos broadcasters," Kim Yong-sik ordered. The devices began transmitting human brain patterns into space. The signals contained human emotions: love, fear, anger, joy, sadness, hope. They contained human memories: childhood games, first kisses, favorite songs, the taste of home-cooked meals. The effect on the converted fleet was immediate and dramatic. The organic connections between ships began to twitch and spasm. The coordinated movement of the fleet became erratic. "Sir," called out his sensor operator, "the enemy ships are breaking formation. Some of them appear to be fighting each other." On the main screen, they watched as 2 converted dreadnoughts turned their weapons on each other. The biomechanical growths on their hulls were pulsing irregularly, as if the ships were in pain. Then something unexpected happened. One of the ships sent a transmission on standard galactic frequencies. "Help us," came a voice that sounded almost Xanthari. Still, Inside, fighting, the hunger, remember, home. Captain Jung Eun-ji commanded the experimental ship Incheon's Fury, humanity's most advanced vessel. Her mission was the most dangerous yet attempted: penetrate to the heart of the converted zone and deploy a massive chaos broadcaster at the source of the infection. Her crew included the best pilots and engineers humanity could provide. Pilot Hong Chang-min had never lost a dogfight. Engineer Seo Byung-jun could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Together they would attempt the impossible. "Captain," reported Hong Chang-min from the pilot's seat, "we are approaching the edge of the converted zone. Sensors are detecting massive energy signatures ahead." What they found there defied description. The original structure from the void sector had grown into something the size of a small moon. It pulsed with billions of lights that formed patterns too complex for human minds to fully understand. Around it floated hundreds of converted ships and dozens of converted planets, all connected by streams of living energy. "It looks like a brain," whispered Seo Byung-jun, "a brain the size of a solar system." Jung Eun-ji studied the massive structure through her ship's sensors. "That is exactly what it is. The first ones have turned this entire region of space into a single thinking organism." They flew closer, using every stealth technology humanity possessed. The chaos broadcaster they carried was the largest ever built, powered by the combined brain patterns of 10,000 human volunteers. If it worked, it would inject pure human chaos into the heart of the collective consciousness. "Deployment position reached," Hong Chang-min reported. "Activate the broadcaster," Jung Eun-ji ordered. The device powered up and began transmitting. It broadcast human laughter and human tears. It broadcast the confusion of first love and the certainty of a mother's protection. It broadcast the chaos of human creativity and the beautiful disorder of human dreams. The effect was visible across the entire converted zone. The geometric patterns of light began to flicker and change. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly flew in random directions. The massive central structure began to pulse irregularly, but the first ones fought back. They tried to analyze the chaos, to find patterns in the randomness. Slowly, they began to adapt. "Captain," Seo Byung-jun called out, "the broadcaster is losing effectiveness. They are learning to filter out our signals. Jung Eun-ji made a decision that would save millions of lives. Transfer all ships' power to the broadcaster, Emergency Protocol 7. Captain, that will leave us defenseless. We will not be able to escape. Then we better make this count." With the ship's full power behind it, the Chaos broadcaster sent one final transmission. It contained the most human thing of all, the willingness to sacrifice oneself for others. It broadcast the love of parents for children, the loyalty of friends, the hope for a better future. The collective consciousness of the first ones could not understand such concepts. Love without logic, sacrifice without benefit, hope without evidence. The pure irrationality of it caused massive disruptions in their thought patterns. Across the converted zone, ships and planets began to break free from collective control. Some remembered who they had been before the conversion. Others remained changed but regained individual will. Dr. An Ju He, humanity's leading expert on ancient civilizations, made a discovery that explained everything. Deep in the archives of extinct species, she found records that told the true story of the first ones. They are not evil, she reported to the Emergency Council on Earth. They are gardeners, ancient beings who have been managing galactic development for millions of years. Admiral Lee Jun-ho looked out at the fleet gathering around Mars. 300 human ships floated in formation, each one equipped with the latest chaos broadcasting technology. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but against the first ones it seemed pitifully small. "Admiral," called out Dr. Shin Hanul from the science station, "the chaos broadcasters are ready for deployment. We have incorporated data from every human culture on Earth. Music, poetry, art, literature, and emotional recordings from volunteers representing all of human experience." Lee Jun-ho nodded. The plan was desperate, but it was the only hope they had. While the galaxy burned around them, humanity would attempt something that no other species would even consider. They would weaponize their own chaos, adapting to our broadcasts by finding patterns in them. So we have made our broadcasts completely unpredictable. Each ship will transmit different types of human thought patterns. Love songs from Korea, jazz music from America, poetry from every continent, children's laughter, the dreams of artists, the fears of soldiers. Colonel Kim Yong-sik stood before his assembled fleet commanders in the briefing room of the flagship Seoul's Hope. Each captain represented a different aspect of human culture and experience. "The first ones expect order," he explained. "They expect logic and predictable responses. When they encounter our chaos, it disrupts their collective consciousness. But they are learning to filter out our transmissions." Captain Park Sun-mi raised her hand. She commanded the ship Busan's Dream, crewed entirely by musicians and artists. "Sir, what if they learn to ignore all of our chaos broadcasts?" "Then we make the chaos bigger," Kim Yong-sik replied. "Each ship will broadcast at maximum power, filling space with pure human unpredictability. We will overwhelm their ability to adapt." Meanwhile, Captain Yong Eun-ji and her crew were still trapped deep in the converted zone. The Incheon's Fury had lost main power during their massive broadcast, and they were drifting toward the central structure of the first ones. But something unexpected was happening. "Captain," Engineer Seo Byung-jun reported, "we are receiving transmissions from some of the converted ships. They are asking for help." Jung Yun-ji listened to the communications with amazement. Voices that had been part of the collective consciousness were now speaking as individuals again. "This is Commander Vextal of the Zenthari Imperial Navy," came one transmission. "My crew and I are still alive inside this converted shell. The chaos broadcast gave us moments of clarity. Can you help us break free completely?" Similar messages came from Veltar scientists and Krex engineers. The human chaos had not destroyed the collective consciousness, but it had created cracks in its control. Individual minds were beginning to reassert themselves. "Pilot Hong Chang-min," Jung Yun-ji ordered. "Can you get us close to that converted Zenthari dreadnought?" "Captain, our engines are barely functioning. It will be dangerous." "Everything we do now is dangerous." "Do it." As they approached the converted ship, They could see the biomechanical growths that covered its hull. But they could also see that some sections of the original metal were showing through, as if the organic material was retreating. Dr. Yang Hyojin worked frantically in her laboratory on Earth, analyzing data from the successful Chaos broadcasts. What she discovered changed their understanding of the first ones completely. They are not just ancient gardeners, she explained to Admiral Lee Jun-ho. They are a collective consciousness that has been alone for millions of years. When they encounter other minds, they try to absorb them to end their loneliness. Are you saying they convert other species because they are lonely? Yes, but it is more complex than that. They genuinely believe they are helping. To them, individual consciousness is inefficient and painful. They think they are saving other species from the suffering of isolation. This revelation changed everything. The first ones were not evil monsters. They were ancient beings who had forgotten how to exist alongside other forms of consciousness. Their conversion process was intended as a gift, not a weapon. How does this help us? Asked the Admiral. If we can communicate with them properly, if we can show them that individual consciousness has value, we might be able to reach a peaceful solution. The massive human fleet moved toward the converted zone, broadcasting chaos on every frequency. Captain Park Sunmi's ship transmitted Korean folk songs that told stories of individual heroes overcoming impossible odds. Captain Lee Dong-wook's vessel broadcast jazz music that celebrated improvisation and creativity. Captain Choi Min-jung's ship transmitted the laughter of children and the voices of lovers. The effect was immediate and widespread. Across the converted zone, the collective consciousness began to fracture. Ships that had moved in perfect unison suddenly broke formation. Converted planets stopped their coordinated orbits and began moving randomly through space. But the first ones fought back with desperate intensity. They began broadcasting their own signals, trying to impose order on the chaos. The space around the converted zone became a battlefield of competing thought patterns. Colonel Kim Yong-sik watched the battle from his command ship. On his screens, he could see the massive central structure of the first ones pulsing with violent light as it struggled to maintain control over its network. All ships, increase broadcast power, he ordered. Give them everything we have. Captain Jung Eun-ji had managed to dock with the converted Xanthari dreadnought. Her small crew worked with the freed Xanthari soldiers to plant chaos broadcasters throughout the ship's biomechanical systems. The organic growths are retreating, reported engineer Seo Byung-jun. Our broadcasts are disrupting the conversion process at the cellular level. Commander Vextal, now partially freed from collective control, helped them navigate the converted ship. The consciousness tried to make us believe that individuality was weakness, he said, but your chaos reminded us that our differences are what make us strong. They planted broadcasters in the ship's converted weapon systems, its organic navigation centers, and its biomechanical engine cores. Each broadcaster transmitted a different type of human chaos: dreams, fears, hopes, and the beautiful unpredictability of individual human experience. Dr. Shin Han-yul made a crucial discovery as the battle raged. Admiral, the first ones are trying to understand our chaos by categorizing it. They are creating files for different types of human emotion and experience. Is that good or bad for us? It could be very good. If they are trying to understand us rather than simply destroy us, it means they are capable of learning. Maybe we can teach them. Admiral Lee Jun-ho made a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. All ships, modify your broadcasts. Instead of pure chaos, I want you to transmit stories. Human stories that show the value of individual consciousness. The order went out across the fleet. Ships began broadcasting human literature, poetry, and personal narratives. They transmitted stories of love and sacrifice, of individuals choosing to help others despite personal cost. The first one's response was unlike anything they had seen before. The massive central structure stopped its violent pulsing and began to pulse in rhythm with the human broadcasts. It was listening. Captain Oh Min-soo commanded the communications ship Incheon's voice. His vessel carried the most powerful transmitters in the human fleet, and his crew included linguists and philosophers. "Admiral," he reported, "we are receiving a response from the central structure. It is attempting to communicate using human language patterns." "Put it through," ordered Admiral Lee Jun-ho. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything they had heard from the first ones before. It spoke slowly, carefully, as if learning to use words for the first time. Small, chaotic ones. "Your stories are difficult to understand. You choose pain over unity. You choose struggle over peace. Why?" Admiral Lee Jun-ho took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. "Because pain and struggle make our joy and love more meaningful," he replied. "Because choosing to help others when we could help ourselves makes us who we are. Because the chaos you fear is the source of everything beautiful we create." There was a long silence. Then the first ones responded. "Show us more of these stories. We wish to understand." Across the converted zone, the violent transformation processes began to slow. Ships and planets remained changed, but the forced conversion of new beings stopped. The collective consciousness was learning to coexist with individual minds. Dr. Yang Hyo-jin established the first formal communication protocols with the first ones. It was a slow process, teaching ancient gardeners to understand the value of the chaos they had always tried to eliminate. "They are not evil," she reported to Earth's government. "They are just very, very old and very, very lonely. For millions of years they have existed as a collective consciousness. They forgot that individual minds could be valuable too. The war was not over, but it had changed from a battle of destruction to a process of education. Humanity had done something no other species had managed. They had taught the galaxy's most ancient power that chaos and order could coexist." Ambassador Kim Tae-ho walked through the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers on New Centauri. The old building had been destroyed when the planet's government was converted during the crisis. This new structure was different from the original, smaller, more practical, and designed by both human and alien architects working together. 2 years had passed since the first ones awakened. 2 years since humanity's chaos broadcasts had stopped the conversion process and began the long work of teaching ancient gardeners to value individual consciousness. The galaxy was still healing, but it was healing. Kim Tae-ho took his place at the speaker's podium, but this time the reception was very different from his first appearance before the council. The surviving delegates listened with the respect that comes from having been saved by those they once dismissed. "Honored members," he began, "I return to this council not as a voice of warning, but as a partner in rebuilding our galaxy." The council was much smaller now. Of the original 47 species, only 23 had survived the crisis with their independence intact. The others had either been completely converted or remained as hybrid societies, part individual, part collective. Director Park Sun-hee stood beside the ambassador. She wore the blue uniform of the Galactic Early Warning Division, a new organization, created after the crisis. Her badge showed the symbol of humanity's greatest discovery, a spiral representing the beautiful chaos of individual thought existing alongside the ordered patterns of collective cooperation. The Early Warning Division has been monitoring the galaxy for signs of similar threats, she reported. We have identified 17 potential awakening sites where other ancient entities might exist. Teams of human chaos specialists are now stationed at each location. The Zenthari representative, now Commander Vextal, the same officer who had been freed from conversion, spoke with gratitude in his voice. The Zenthari Empire acknowledges its debt to humanity. We also acknowledge that our aggressive expansion policies contributed to awakening the first ones. We have implemented the recommended chaos integration protocols in all our military planning. The Veltar representative nodded in agreement. The Confederation's research fleets now include human advisors specializing in unpredictable thinking. We have learned that our pursuit of perfect logic made us vulnerable to collective consciousness conversion. Dr. Yang Hyo-jin had become the galaxy's leading expert on First One's communication. She worked from a special station built in the heart of the converted zone, where she maintained constant dialogue with the ancient collective consciousness. The First Ones continue to learn about individual thought, she reported via subspace communication. They have agreed to release more converted beings who wish to return to individual consciousness. However, approximately 30% of the converted population has chosen to remain part of the collective. This was one of the most surprising developments of the post-crisis period. Many beings who had been converted discovered that they enjoyed the peace and unity of collective consciousness. They had been given the choice to return to individual thought or remain part of the collective, and millions had chosen to stay. Hybrid societies are proving to be remarkably innovative, Dr. Yang Hyo-jin continued. They combine the efficiency of collective thought with the creativity of individual consciousness. Some of our greatest post-crisis technological advances have come from these hybrid communities. Chancellor O'Mearan, representing the Reformed Council, stood to address the Assembly. She was human, elected to lead the new galactic government because of humanity's unique role in ending the crisis. The old galaxy believed that order and hierarchy were the highest values, she said. We thought that older meant wiser, that size meant strength, that unity meant peace. The crisis taught us that these beliefs nearly destroyed us all. She gestured to the mixed assembly of individual and hybrid delegates. Today we recognize humanity as the guardians of chaos, not because they are the strongest or the oldest, but because they understand that difference is strength, that unpredictability is survival, and that sometimes the youngest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. Captain Park Jae-won commanded the peacekeeping vessel Seoul's Wisdom, patrolling the border zones between converted and unconverted space. His ship was a marvel of new technology, part human design, part First One's engineering, representing the cooperation that had emerged from crisis. "Captain," reported his science officer, "we are detecting unusual energy patterns in Sector 12. They match the signatures of ancient technology." Park Jae-won felt the familiar chill of potential danger. Even 2 years after the crisis, new threats could emerge at any time. The galaxy was vast, and the First Ones had hinted that they were not the only ancient species sleeping among the stars. "All stations prepare for investigation protocol," he ordered, "and get me a direct line to the early warning division." His crew included both humans and aliens, working together in ways that would have been impossible before the crisis. The Zenthari weapons officer used human chaos theory to make their targeting systems unpredictable. The Veltar navigator incorporated human intuition into her calculations. The Krex engineer built systems that could adapt to unexpected situations. They approached the energy source carefully, broadcasting human chaos patterns as a precaution. What they found was both reassuring and terrifying. Another ancient structure, similar to the first ones but clearly from a different species. "It appears to be dormant," reported the science officer, "but our presence has caused some activation in its outer systems." Park Jae-won made the decision that had saved the galaxy before. "All stop. Do not approach any closer. Transmit peaceful greetings and request for communication, and send all our data to Earth Command immediately." Within hours, the Early Warning Division had teams of human chaos specialists on their way to the new site. Dr. Lee Soo-jin, now elderly but still sharp, led the response team. "We know what to do now," she told her younger colleagues as their ship approached the ancient structure. "We talk to them. We share our stories. We show them that chaos and order can work together." The new entity that awakened was called the Weavers. Unlike the first ones, who were gardeners of consciousness, the Weavers were architects of reality itself. They shaped matter and energy according to patterns that spanned millions of years. But humanity's approach worked again. Stories of human creativity, of art and music and literature fascinated the Weavers. They had spent eons building perfect structures, but they had never considered the beauty of imperfection. "Your chaos creates new patterns," the Weavers communicated through gravitational waves that human technology translated into words. "We wish to learn from your unpredictable beauty." The integration of the Weavers into galactic society took months, but it was accomplished peacefully. They shared their reality-shaping technology in exchange for human art and stories. Soon, hybrid worlds began appearing, planets shaped by Weaver technology but designed according to human aesthetic principles. Dr. Kang Hye-rin, Now the galaxy's foremost expert on ancient civilizations made regular discoveries of new sleeping entities. Each awakening brought potential crisis, but also opportunity. The galaxy is much older and more complex than we ever imagined, she reported to the Council. There are layers of ancient civilization built upon each other, going back billions of years. Humanity's chaos is the key to communicating with all of them. The transformation of galactic society continued. The rigid hierarchies of the old council were replaced by fluid networks of cooperation. Species that had once competed for dominance now worked together on projects that spanned centuries. Human culture spread throughout the galaxy, not through conquest, but through invitation. Other species wanted to learn the beautiful chaos that had saved them all. Human schools were established on dozens of worlds, teaching alien children to think creatively and unpredictably. Captain Jung Eun-ji, now an admiral, commanded the exploration fleet that pushed into the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Her ships carried chaos broadcasters and diplomats, prepared to meet whatever ancient entities they might encounter. "The universe is full of sleeping gods," she told her crew as they prepared for another deep space mission. "Our job is to wake them up gently and teach them to play nicely with others." But the greatest change was in humanity itself. No longer the youngest and weakest species in the galaxy, humans had become something unique. The bridges between order and chaos, the translators who could speak to ancient minds and young civilizations alike. President Quan Tae-jin, now in his second term leading both Earth and the reformed Galactic Council, reflected on the transformation during a speech to mark the second anniversary of the crisis. "We warned them," he said, speaking to representatives from across the galaxy. "They did not listen, but when the crisis came, we did not abandon them. We saved them, not because they deserved it, but because it was right." He paused, looking out at the mixed audience of humans, aliens, and hybrid beings. "Today we are no longer separate species competing for resources. We are partners in the greatest experiment in galactic history, learning to live together in beautiful, chaotic harmony."